Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on just this upcoming DC universe that James Gunn is prepping and, well, I guess in the midst of making. So over the past week or so, not sure when it would have been, I guess, not sure at least how long ago from when this video will come out, but I guess sometime in the past 7 days, we got the first reveal and official look at I guess the entire Superman suit that David Corenswet will be wearing in the upcoming Superman film by James Gunn coming out in the middle of next year. And yeah, maybe saying, whole is a bit of a stretch as he is sitting down and covering a few crucial elements of the suit, but it still gives us a decent look at the majority of the suit. Now, this was put off, for a while. This reveal, many believe this would be revealed around the time they started filming back in March. That did not happen. They did the logo reveal like a week or so into filming or something, but that didn't really do that much in regards to the social media landscape type of things, or at least impressions of this thing. And then people expected a mid to late April release for the suit. Didn't happen, but finally on, I think it was May the 6th or 7th, I think, in America, it did finally drop, and that's what we got. And look, the reactions to the suit weren't amazing. I was sort of surprised how harsh people were being on it. They were extremely varied, though, the opinions on this. Some saying it's the worst suit they've seen in a while for a Superman movie, superhero movie, let alone a Superman project. And then some glazing it, giving it a 12 out of 10 scores and everything like that. But yeah, I saw more negative reactions, which I was sort of surprised with, and like not necessarily trashing it, just saying it was a bit disappointing and it could have been better. For me, I think it's fine. I'd give it like a 7.5 out of 10, maybe something like that. Nothing amazing, but also not bad. I think the suit's fine. It just maybe it being held off for a bit was the issue. Everyone was expecting a 10 out of 10 suit because it was delayed for a bit, but it's fine. Like, I mean, I'm more concerned about the movie being good rather than whatever. He could be wearing the crappiest suit of all time, but if the movie's amazing, the story, then who cares? Now, the one thing I think is bad is the actual photo itself. This reveal photo, I think it's not like very good. I think it's probably straight ass, like him sitting down while like the world's getting blown up behind him. I think it's a bit silly. I understand it's meant to be a bit tongue-in-cheek by James Gunn with Superman getting ready for like work, being like, oh god, gotta go out again, with like this alien battle or something going on in the background, but him sitting down doesn't really do anything positive for the suit. As you can see, it like bunching up and everything like that. So yeah, I think the suit's fine, nothing great, just fine, but the reveal photo was a bit crap. Hopefully we get a better one with him standing up in a more superhero, like a Superman pose in the next coming weeks, maybe, I don't know. But I had this topic of conversation written down, like the topic of conversation for this video written down for a while, like really, yeah, like since like I guess proper conversation about this movie started, just for the sake of conversing about it and just giving some opinions and what really matters. But it heated up after this reveal photo came out, and that is what happens if this Superman film coming out from James Gunn next year flops or underperforms. Now, underperforms is probably the key term to use here, as I really, really, really do not see this film actually flopping. But then again, a good amount of people think a flop is something that doesn't make $1 billion at the box office, or maybe just like doesn't meet the goals that the studio is meeting. But yeah, so underperforms is probably the key term here. But yeah, what actually will happen if that happens with this Superman film? Well, the first thing to look at is what has to happen for the film to actually be successful. And I've put this down as the trifecta, if you want to put it, that not only James Gunn has to play a part in and help achieve, but also Warner Brothers and also us, the audience. So step one in the trifecta is make a damn good movie. And to be honest, I think this is the one that I think at the very least is maybe not a guarantee, because you can never be too certain and be too sure, but it's very likely. And look, I don't think a lot of the stuff heading into the making of this movie was mind-blowing. Like, I don't think the castings for this film are mind-blowing. Like, I think the Clark/Superman and Lois Lane castings are pretty on point, and they're sort of hard to dislike, but the rest of the cast is okay to mid, if not, maybe not that great at all. But it's a Superman movie with a heavy focus on Lois Lane as well, from what we know. Those are the two most important castings, and I think they are good choices. So I get a tick there because the main focuses are good casting. But in regards to the film side of it, James Gunn is pretty reliable. I don't think Guardians 2 is very good. I actually don't like that movie at all, really. But all these other superhero films are either very good or great, whether it's on the other two Guardians movies or the Suicide Squad. Then of course you can include Peacemaker Season 1. So I expect Superman to fall into that side of things on the good side, rather than that one project that I didn't really like too much. The only factor that could play a part is that this has a big expectation level from, the general audience and specifically fans. Like, while I think like all of his other movies, The Suicide Squad, Peacemaker, and even Guardians 3 and Guardians 2 following the like, the randomness that Guardians 1 was and it caught people a surprise. I don't think any of those movies really had any major expectation, in all honesty. Like maybe Guardians 3 to a bit, but even then, like at that stage, it was just sort of like maybe that was a surprise because a lot of the other surrounding projects in the MCU or a lot of the other projects in the MCU surrounding that movie were a bit disappointing to people or underperformed themselves, whether it was on the movie or TV landscape. So Guardians 3 was this thing was like, oh, this actually was good. So it surprised people sort of in the vein of the first Guardians. So at least compared to the expectation and pressure that Superman will have, I don't think any of those movies come close. So Superman is on its like own pedestal here, but I still think he will deliver a very good, if not great film. I think he's a good writer. Like I don't think he's necessarily like this amazing director. Like I don't think he's going to go down the books as this like ridiculously amazing director because it's not like he does anything too like next level or game changing, but the writing side, which I think when it comes to a lot of these movies, because obviously, adapted from mostly written materials or stuff that people would read, he does it really, really well. So I'm not too worried about that element of the film succeeding when it comes to this trifecta. Number 2 is something that really has, like James Gunn plays into it, but really he's not the core of it. And that's promote the movie goddamn well and build up hype. Now, this is the one I'm really worried about and worried for because, to be honest, how this is done really impacts number 3. Like number 3 is probably impacted by both step 1 and step 2 here, but this step here of promoting it well is just where I fear things the most. And that simply comes down to nothing to do with the quality of the movie. As I said, I think it's going to be good regardless. That might be me being like stupidly optimistic, but it's just how I feel. But Warner Brothers and their advertising is so hit and miss, it's not even funny. And when it comes down to certain projects, it's like pretty much a flip of the coin as to whether it's going to get very good promotional stuff or absolutely awful coverage. Arguably, it's not even a flip of the coin. It's like rolling a dice. And if you land on 6, it's good. If you land on any other number, it's going to be bad. The best example of last year with just a flip of the coin scenario with Warner Brothers is Barbie. They nailed it. They could have stuffed it up completely, but they did as good of a job promoting that movie as you can do with a film, in my opinion. But then pretty much every other Warner Brothers movie last year got mid to bad advertising campaigns, whether they were started way too early. So by the time the movie actually came out, it had just been exhausted, like The Flash, or there just wasn't a campaign like for Shazam 2 and Blue Beetle. So fingers crossed, Superman gets the good side of the coin, but the thing that is in its advantage is that it is Warner Brothers' biggest movie or film of next year. No doubt around that. So of course, it's also going to be launching the new DCU, so the attention given to the promotion around that won't be lacking. But it's whether they, it's whether what they do with that works. So fingers crossed. Good trailers, no weird PR dramas. David Corenswet, please don't do anything stupid after you finish filming, like kidnap someone. I don't know, hide away in a cabin in the woods until the promo tour starts or something like that. For the love of God, I know. Just don't do anything silly. And the final stage is a simple one. This comes down to the audiences, but also as a part of Warner Brothers. Turn up. The audiences have to turn up. It can't be this thing where it's like, oh, I have to wait and see, or, the big thing that's affecting a lot of movies nowadays that also falls into the franchise thing, even the superhero stuff is, I'll just wait till it comes out on, a streaming service or on digital or whatever it is. Like audiences have to turn up. And I know it's such a simple thing to say, but it's just a main factor. But also the thing that Warner Brothers can help to not impact this is the early screenings things. Like, especially with DC over the past, like just before COVID and like the movies that came out after COVID, there was so many of those like early screenings things where, you go see a movie like a week early and all you had to do was like sign up for an email. And it wasn't just this like one screening in the entire country. There was a screening in LA, in New York, in Atlanta, in Dallas, in Houston, in Seattle, in wherever it is. There's just a ridiculous amount of early screenings. So by the time the actual movie comes out, everyone that's like a massive fan of the movie heading into it or really wanting to see it has probably already seen it during an early screening. And a lot of people only like watching a movie once. They won't go see it twice. So you take out a massive chunk of not only people going to see up in the first week, but also like, the buzz coming out on that day the movie comes out. So that's a big thing that they need to figure out and just do no early screenings. Like in a perfect world, there wouldn't even be a lot of those like like multimedia screenings where like, you know, someone like me, like a YouTuber or something, goes and sees it a couple days early. Like you'd really only have like critics who are actually going to properly review it on Rotten Tomatoes, and that's it. But that's not how it works today. But they just got to limit the amount of screenings there. But to put it down to it, to the simple question of will it flop, will it underperform, whichever way you want to put it, will it flop? And my answer to that is I want to say no. Like I don't have it like a pure prediction because there's a couple of big things. Don't know what it looks like. We haven't seen a trailer. We haven't seen any set photos. We don't know how these characters are going to interact. If, you know, there's warring signs there. And the big thing that I'm actually really curious about heading into next year around this time is that Fantastic Four reboot, you know, the MCU Fantastic Four is meant to, is it like the week or two? It's like they're coming out a week apart or something like that, or they're coming out the same month. So I'm very interested to see what happens there because it's giving me flashbacks to BVS v Civil War when everyone, like, I think it was like 3 or 4 months before those two movies came out, everyone was like, oh, BVS is going to dominate. BVS is going to nail Civil War. They're going to have to move Civil War. Civil War didn't move. All of a sudden, what makes like 1.5 billion and what makes like 800 million? The Marvel movie makes all that money when, you know, all those months before, everyone was saying the DC movie was going to completely squash it and everything like that. So that's a concerning thing. But at the same time, I don't think that necessarily pushes Superman to flop. I think it just might, you know, one might make more money. But once again, we haven't seen anything from either of those two movies. But regardless of like whether it flops or whether it doesn't flop, what happens if it flops? Like, what's the payoff? Well, not the payoff. What are the, like, you know, what follows on from that in regards to, I guess, the fan expectation, but also on the Warner Brothers and DC side. Now, I'm pretty much like collecting this from what people think online. I've got three options here. Sorry, that, like, you know, compacted, I guess. So the first one is like the most drastic one. Like, this is like, if they did this, they've got zero faith in James Gunn. They're blaming everything on him if this doesn't work. And this is what some people think will happen, by the way, if Superman doesn't perform. This first option is that they blow it up and just stopped attempting DC connected universes going forward. Now, I think that last bit of stopping even an attempted DC connected universe again is an option, but it plays into the third thing we'll talk about. So in regards to them blowing up, they're not going to blow it up after one movie. Like, that's ridiculous. That's just insane if they do that, because, I mean, even if you look at the MCU, I know it's not in its best things at the moment, but that's like what DC is trying to do here. They're trying to do what the MCU did. They weren't like making this ridiculous amount of money at the beginning. Sure, the first Iron Man was good, but then like Hulk didn't make a lot of money. I think Captain America lost money. Thor wasn't this massive box office hit. And like then Iron Man 2 was decent. They didn't have this like massive success there until the first Avengers came around and they got that build up. And okay, this is what they're building up to. And then it allowed those future phases. Everyone knew what they were getting into. Watch all these movies and it builds up to this big event movie or movies. So I highly doubt they're going to blow it up. And also, by the time Superman comes out, they would have filmed either another 1 or 2 movies that had probably done, as well as some TV shows. They're not just going to throw that all away. The second option is actually one that wouldn't surprise me. Actually, it would surprise me, but it's definitely not out of the question. But the movie would have to underperform quite a bit, to the point where like no one really has that much interest. And that's, you put Superman on the back burner, where there's no Superman related projects. Maybe the character shows up. Actually, you probably would have the character show up, but he doesn't have a project or like a sequel or anything like that. So he's put on the back burner in regards to being a key franchise figure where he gets a sequel and a trilogy and everything like that. But he still he's still a somewhat focused in like other movies and everything like that. So that's actually probably an option that could happen. But once again, the movie have to underperform a big bit. But also they'd have to have, like, they'd want Superman involved in their stories. Like, they have plans for Superman within their universe that plays into like the bigger event thing. So that's definitely an option. And this is the thing that I think is going to play out if the movie underperforms. And even if the movie does well, like you'd still go down this route. And that's, you just let the next few projects play out. Batman, Supergirl, Swamp Thing, whatever the other movies are that are coming out, Teen Titans, and then whatever those TV shows like Peacemaker, Waller, Green Lantern, Booster Gold, all of them, you let those projects play out and see how they perform, and then you figure out what to do next once you get a decent reading of how your universe is going. And that's probably after 2.5, 3, maybe 4, maybe even 5 years, depending on, you know, their schedule and everything like that. That's what you do. And then if that's not working, then you go back to that thing I was talking about before, where you stopped attempting a connected universe in this DC thing. I think if this doesn't work, probably by 2030, that's because that's about 5, well, that is going to be 5 years, I guess, after Superman comes out, you'd look at that and go, okay, this doesn't work. It's just not meant to be for our universe. And I see them still making DC movies, still making a lot of DC movies, but it's not this connected thing. They will just go back to making franchise things where they'll try a movie, see if it goes well. If it goes well, it gets a sequel. If it goes well with the sequel, it gets a trilogy, everything like that. Like we got with the Dark Knight trilogy and all that stuff. Like we got back in the day with the Batman movies there, with the Superman movies there, all that stuff. That's what they'll do. And if they want to do a Justice League movie, then it's completely separate. And you get a new Batman, a new Superman, a new this, that, and the other. That's in that movie. Like what they're going to do with that George Miller movie back in the day. That's what I see them doing. Maybe I'm wrong there, but that's just if all this doesn't work. I don't see it flopping, by the way. That's just, I know I've said that a couple times. I need to reiterate. I don't see it flopping, but it's just a big topic of conversation, which, I understand there's nothing really to talk about at the moment. There's nothing coming out, but at the same time, it's just like, it's almost like fear-mongering to an extent, but I guess it's still an interesting conversation to have. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, you also could drop a like on the show support. Let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions on this. Do you think Superman by James Gunn coming out in the middle of next year will flop or underperform? As I said, you could say it flops and it's going to go horribly, but do you think it will underperform, or do you think it's going to go well? And do you have any other, opinions you want to leave down there? Let me know in the comments. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I will catch you guys later. Goodbye.